Hello and welcome to In Focus. Today we bring you stories that reveal not only the scale of today's challenges, but also the strength of those who stand against them. In this episode, Russia expands its war effort deep into civilian life, targeting even children and students as manpower shortages grow. At the same time, in Kyiv, new regional partnerships are forming, with Belarusian democratic forces aligning around a shared vision of freedom. We begin in Russia, where the government is going further than ever to sustain its war effort, reshaping society from the ground up. From kindergartens to universities, the system is being mobilized. But behind this massive campaign lies a growing problem the Kremlin can no longer hide.
Recruitment for the army starting from kindergarten. In Russia, 5-year-old children are being told about service in drone troops. According to the publication Verstka, military personnel visit kindergartens, demonstrate how drones work, and explain how they are used in combat. Children are shown how to operate unmanned aerial vehicles and are told that it is an exciting and promising activity. In one kindergarten, children were even dressed in airborne forces uniforms for a meeting with a participant of the so-called special military operation.
Our local serviceman told the children about the new branch of the military in Russia, the Unmanned Systems Forces, where he is currently serving. He spoke about the conditions in which our soldiers live and what helps them in their difficult service. The children from the Semitsvetik group, all dressed in modern airborne forces uniforms purchased by their parents, recited a very touching poem titled, "My Dad Went to War."
According to experts, this is not about education, but about early militarization. War is being presented as the norm already at the level of children's perception. In schools, meetings with military personnel are also held, along with patriotic important conversations classes. Cadet classes are being developed, and children and teenagers are actively involved in supporting the army. According to Verstka, during technology lessons across the country, children are producing dozens of types of equipment for the military. The publication counted at least 1,017 schools from 77 regions that posted on their public pages and social networks about children making gear for participants of the so-called special military operation. The longer Putin continues the war, the more such reports appear. School children sew clothing and bedding, create camouflage elements, make medical devices, and prepare dry rations.
Sometimes children fulfill urgent orders. In just 2 days, female students at school number 2 in the Krasnoyarsk town of Sharapovo sewed 232 red armbands for assault brigades on sewing machines. The order, according to the school's public page, came from 30 participants of the special military operation whose children attend this school. Schools find it convenient to involve children in producing military gear during class time. Children cannot refuse because technology lessons are a compulsory part of the curriculum in Russia. Meanwhile, adults get the results of their work for free. From a publication by Verstka.
While school children are used by the Kremlin as free labor, Russia has completely different plans for university students. Facing a shortage of new recruits and rising casualties, the Russian authorities are increasingly turning to universities as a source of army replenishment. Students are lured with promises of a special 1-year contract, far from the front line, large payments, around 5 million rubles, and free university education afterward. However, lawyers point out that claims about short-term contracts for unmanned systems troops do not comply with current legislation. Students are being deliberately misled. Agitation campaigns are also conducted in universities to convince students of the need to fight, though these efforts do not always succeed. During one such meeting between a Russian serviceman and students, an awkward incident occurred. Experts say that recruiting students is a sign that Putin is facing serious problems, and it is far from certain that he will be able to solve them.
Путину заканчивается пушечное мясо.
Putin is running out of cannon fodder. That's why they are now trying to mobilize students who do not want to die. From the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, anti-war sentiments have been strongest precisely among young people. On the other hand, Putin's options for recruiting on foreign markets are being cut off. Many countries have already issued official protests and are banning their citizens from fighting for Russia. In some places, criminal cases are even being opened against such individuals. So Putin is facing problems from all sides.
Russian army losses continue to grow. Since the beginning of winter, Ukrainian drones have eliminated or put out of action nearly 9,000 more Russian soldiers than the enemy has managed to recruit. This was stated by Commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Brovdy, in an interview with The Economist. According to the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, total Russian personnel losses have reached almost 1.3 million. It is for this reason that Putin is resorting to extreme measures and dragging even children into the war, analysts note, reported by Maria Zheludchenko, UATV News.
While authoritarian regimes double down on control, the opposite process is unfolding in Kyiv, where discussions are focused on freedom, cooperation, and the future of the region beyond dictatorship. Discover more in our next report.
Ukraine's defense forces are a hope for the freedom not only of Kyiv, but also of Minsk. The peoples of the region must unite their efforts in the fight against the regimes of Putin and Lukashenko. That was the message from Svietlana Tsikhanouskaya, head of Belarus's United Transitional Cabinet, in a video address to the Regional Security Forum Path to Freedom, held in Kyiv. The forum was timed to coincide with the country's national holiday, Freedom Day, marked on March 25th. It is an important date for the Belarusian opposition, symbolizing the aspiration for a democratic Belarus. The forum brought together representatives of the United Transitional Cabinet and fighters of the Kastus Kalinowski Regiment, Belarusian volunteers serving in the armed forces of Ukraine.
Білоруси з перших днів стоять на боку українців.
Belarusians have supported Ukrainians since the very first days of Russia's invasion. Protest actions, sabotage against Russian troops, railway partisans, Belarusian Hajun, volunteers, dozens of whom gave their lives for Ukraine. Today, the Belarusian diaspora donates more to support Ukraine than to Belarusian projects. We have one enemy, Russian imperialism, and Ukrainians and Belarusians share one goal, a free, democratic European future. Today, we all look to Ukraine with great hope as a regional leader on whom the future of Belarus also depends.
Earlier, Svietlana Tsikhanouskaya said she intends to open a mission of the democratic forces of Belarus in Ukraine in the near future. Similar missions are already operating in Brussels, Estonia, the Czech Republic, and Italy.
There will be a representative on a permanent basis. I believe this is very positive from the standpoint of coordinating our joint actions, both on the international stage and in the information sphere. It will give us more grounds to develop common approaches, both now and for our future relations with Belarus.
Forum participants discussed the most effective ways to put pressure on Lukashenko's dictatorship. Europe must strengthen restrictions against Belarus so that the Kremlin cannot continue using it to circumvent sanctions, experts say.
It is necessary to take into account the position of major players, in particular the easing of tensions on the part of the United States, which has led to a partial relaxation of sanctions. I believe we need to maintain a consolidated position. It is good that the European Union is maintaining such a stance. Any steps taken by the Lukashenko regime regarding political prisoners should not serve as grounds for revising sanctions policy.
It is very important that representatives of democratic Belarus and Ukraine work together to build relations and coordinate their actions with regard to the overall sanctions regime. We must also coordinate our demands to the European Union on imposing sanctions against the Lukashenko regime.
The participants adopted a resolution stating that the Lukashenko regime poses a threat to regional security in Eastern Europe. The document says that Ukraine, Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia will form the core of support for Belarus's democratic forces. Participants also pledged to create support programs for Belarusian veterans. Reported by Andriy Dimitrenko, Ruslan Belozerov, UATV News.
This was In Focus. Ukraine is not only holding the line, it is shaping what comes next, both on the battlefield and across the region. As pressure builds on authoritarian systems, new partnerships and ideas for a democratic future are gaining strength in response. The direction of this war is increasingly defined not just by force, but by resilience, coordination, and long-term vision. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to stay informed, and follow us for more verified updates and in-depth analysis. And we'll see you next time.